All right, welcome to episode 18. We are recording as of Saturday, May 5th, 2026. I want to continue this time with the format that we did in the last video, where I lightly touched on what's going on currently and then dive back into what I missed out on during my year hiatus. So, uh, life at the moment, things are actually pretty good, I would say. Work is a lot better than it has been over the last year. I finally feel like I'm not being micromanaged every 15 seconds. My supervisor, who I don't actually do a lot of work with, is now in Denver while I'm here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And the two people who I actually produce work product with have much more direct access to me. And so I've entered one of these sort of rare time periods where I'm really enjoying my job. And I feel like everybody now is just holding their breath for the inevitable what goes wrong situation. So, all good on the work front. Home front is also good. The house is really coming together nice. I've got a painting area set up. My wife has got the main living space looking really good. We've painted a lot of things, and so now we're in a holding pattern. We're just trying to get ourselves in a really good financial situation to go into 2027 so that we can really start looking to the future. So all of that's good. My daughter is in speech therapy, I guess. And look, I don't know these things. The youngest member of my family is my younger brother, and he's only 5 years younger than me. So I don't know anything about the development of children, but I guess children are supposed to say 16 phrases and have 16 gestures by 16 months. And, my daughter's right around 20 months and doesn't really say anything except for babbling. So I guess that's a good sign. And she understands a lot. So so to my understanding, that means it's just that she doesn't really need to talk because we understand what she needs. So we've got her in speech therapy to push her into that so that she starts talking more. But all of that is good. We made our first trip down to Denver, and that was really nice. We got to listen to a zombie book, which was really cool. And I'm going to be picking the next book, which will be sci-fi for us to listen to on future trips. So all in all, I think things are looking up on the home front. So now I'd really like to take a step back and talk about things, something pretty big that I did during the hiatus, which is that I finished the Hours Heresy series. And wow, what a series! What an ending! The Siege of Terra was just a heart stopper on multiple occasions. True to form, there was a lot of filler. We would dive into characters in certain books that we either hadn't heard from in 20 books or that we've never heard about. But I'm not as upset about that as I see people being online. I really feel the distinct sense that that by having those characters, it lets us explore aspects of this world while still being aware that there are full consequences. Because part of the problem with the Primarchs is that you might have some deviations to their story within established lore, but you ultimately still have to have established lore. So it makes more sense to have those characters, and I could go on and on about it. I think so. The End and the Death Volume 3 was obviously my favorite because it's the end of the series. Echoes of Eternity is a really good one as well. Same with End and the Death Volume 2. All of them really impactful and really memorable. I mean, I must have listened to the speech that Sanguinius gives on the Eternity Gate now upwards of 10, 15 times. It's really just It's really impactful. I think standout funny moment for me was during the fight between Horus and the Emperor, which was also done really well, by the way, but I'll get into that in a second. Well, no, I should go into that first. The fight between the Horus and the Emperor, I think Dan Abnett did an amazing job of making that fight feel really metaphysical. There was a lot of like passing between dimensions, fighting with concepts rather than physical weapons, and within that was a really funny moment where the tarot cards that were really big throughout most of the Siege of Terra, Horus and the Emperor started using them as a Yu-Gi-Oh deck and fighting back and forth, and I thought that was a really great moment. That I don't know how to describe it. It added some sense of levity, but it didn't feel like it was just a forced Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering insert. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I really thought that was a great moment. And I was I was impacted significantly more by the fight between Horus and the Emperor than I thought I would. Sanguinius's battle with Horus was obviously very emotional because you really get attached to Sanguinius as a Primarch, and the other Primarch that I feel really attached to now is Dorn. Dorn is a character who I don't think I would had a good appreciation for up until the siege, but they really just like brought him into my focus, and so Dorn and Sanguinius are now absolutely two of my favorite Primarchs. But the battle between Horus and the Emperor, I expected it to be emotional, but I didn't expect what the way that it would be emotional for me, because in the end, one of the main characters who, and I'm going to get into spoilers here, one of the main characters, Garviel Loken, who was Horus's favorite son, goes with the Emperor to confront Horus on the Vengeful Spirit, and I still my dad and I still aren't talking, and it was very, I don't know, it was very, I felt a connection to Garviel because of what was happening there. It felt like, I felt a connection to Garviel there because it felt I could really feel Garviel desperately pleading with his father, who he knows to have been corrupted by a force that is unilaterally evil, and in rejection of all that is good and real. And to see from that from Horus's perspective, where Horus isn't even thinking in the first person. He's thinking in the second person, like something is doing the thinking for him, and I really felt impacted by that, because that really felt like it mirrored what is happening between my father and I. And I suppose you would think that the God Emperor then would be my grandfather, but it didn't feel like that. It felt more like the God Emperor is a much better analogy for God than he is for any kind of like actual paternal element. I think Malkador is actually a better example of like a father figure than the Emperor, because the Emperor is so enigmatic and very mysterious, and so what he does doesn't always make sense, and I think that makes him a better analogy for God. So, but that just really brought the whole metaphor down on me, which is that, oh, here is you begging with your father to reject this path that you know to be evil. And when he refuses, God steps in and punishes him for straying from that light. And through most of the fight, it doesn't feel that way. Obviously it feels like the Emperor is losing pretty bad because Horus is just like absolutely juiced up on chaos energy. But I think what Dan Abnett does is really good in the sense that he portrays the power of the indomitable human spirit, where no matter how many times the Emperor gets beat down, he keeps getting back up. He keeps drawing power, and he keeps refusing to go down. And I think that is and if anything, I think that makes him additionally an even better analogy for God, because he does just keep going in the face of pain and suffering and the ultimate failure of his plan. He just keeps going. So I don't know how much more I want to get into. It's at some point I'd like to go back and like go through my favorite books and talk about some more moments, but those were really the key things I had overall. Like, oh man, I've had to fight the urge to go back and reread the series because it was just so good. But I started in Christmas of 23 and I finished in like midsummer of 25. So it took almost a year and a half, but I took long breaks from reading. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and reread it someday. But now we're into the sequel series, The Scourging, and or The Scouring. I think maybe it's The Scouring. But so far that hasn't started phenomenal for me. It was okay, but it wasn't like, admittedly, I don't even think that's the writer's fault, because at the end of the day, you're going from the height of The End and the Death Volume 3 to post-political, post-war politics, recovering, things like that. The traders are on their heels. People want to take different approaches. People are wondering if the Emperor is going to come back, all of this stuff. So I'm going to keep reading that series. I think I'll probably give it 2 or 3 more books, and if it doesn't really capture me, then I might ditch it. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. All in all, things are pretty good now. I don't think I have any other major thoughts to wrap up. Yeah, no, I think that's good for now. The last one was a really long one, trying to catch up, so we'll call this one here, and then we'll pick it up with more stuff next time. I got to go over things like the dog bite. I got to go over things like all kinds of stuff. Anyway, all right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.